remembering a time before we knew everything. You ever notice how hard we hold on to the things we think we know? We're taught to keep learning, to keep pushing forward, to always know more. But no one really tells us the truth. That sometimes growth comes not from adding, but from letting go. Letting go of what used to work, letting go of pride, of fear, of being right all the time. Today, we're going to take a quiet walk through 10 stories, simple, true, deeply human, where real change didn't come from learning more, but from unlearning what no longer served. 1. The farmer who stopped fighting the land. John Franklin's family had been farming the same soil in Iowa for 3 generations. Straight rows, deep plowing, the same tools, the same habits. But after years of watching the soil turn to dust, he sat on his porch one evening and whispered, "Something's not right." A neighbor introduced him to no-till farming, a method that meant not disturbing the soil at all. It went against everything he knew, but he tried. And slowly, the earth healed. Crops came back. And so did John's faith in starting over. 2. The teacher who chose curiosity over control. Miss Ellie had taught 5th grade in the same town for almost 30 years. She was the kind of teacher who never missed a day. Every test was typed, every lesson polished. But something was changing. The kids weren't listening. They weren't engaged. One day, a boy asked, "Why does any of this matter?" And instead of scolding him, she paused. The next morning, she came in with no lesson plan. Just a question, "What do you want to learn today?" And just like that, the classroom became a place of wonder again. 3. The fighter who learned to float. Charlie McCoy was a boxer built like a truck. He won with power, not grace. But after 3 crushing losses, he walked into a new gym, ready to quit. The coach looked him up and down and said, "Forget the fists. Let's teach you to move." So Charlie danced. Literally. Ballet. Footwork. Breathing. At first, he felt ridiculous. But then everything changed. In the next fight, he didn't just survive. He soared. He said later, "I had to stop fighting the way I thought I should, to fight the way I could." 4. The mother who let go of control. Margaret had always protected her son, Daniel. Tied his shoes. Did his homework. Called his teachers when he cried. But by high school, he couldn't handle life on his own. A counselor told her gently, "You're not raising a child, you're raising a man." So, with tears in her eyes, she stepped back. She let him fail. He forgot his homework, missed the bus, got in trouble. But then he figured it out. And one day, he came home, tossed his backpack down and said, "Thanks for not saving me." 5. The monk who walked away from the words. Brother Anan had memorized thousands of sacred texts by age 30. He could recite wisdom with his eyes closed, but his heart still felt heavy. One night, the elder monk said softly, "The scriptures are not the path. You are." So Anan stopped reading. He started walking, serving, listening. And years later, watching a leaf fall from a tree, he smiled and whispered, "Now I understand." 6. The inventor who released his favorite failure. Thomas Ray had one idea he thought would change everything, a water-saving toilet valve. He worked on it for 6 years, but it never took off. He was so invested, he ignored every other idea that came. Until one day, while fixing a leaky pipe for a neighbor, a simple idea clicked. A lock for pipes. It wasn't fancy, but it worked. That invention paid his bills, helped his town, and gave him peace. He laughed and said, "The moment I gave up my big dream, the right one showed up." 7. The veteran who learned to sit still. Luis Torres had served in the military for 12 years. He was always alert, always braced. Even at home, he'd wake up at 5 a.m., bed made tight, boots polished. But one night, his 6-year-old daughter crawled into his lap and asked, "Can you just be soft with me?" That hit him harder than any war. So he stopped saluting life. He started sitting, breathing, laughing. He said later, "It took courage to go to war, but even more to come home." 8. The artist who burned her past. Maya's early paintings were full of sorrow, grief on canvas. They brought her recognition, even success. But every time she painted that way, it pulled her back into a place she'd already left. One morning, she lit a fire on the beach and burned 12 old canvases. People thought she was crazy. But she wasn't destroying her art. She was releasing it. After that, her colors changed. Her art glowed.
So did she.
9. The CEO who washed dishes for clarity. Elliot Marks once ran a company with hundreds of employees. Every hour booked. Every word measured. But after a health scare, he walked away. He spent a summer helping at his cousin's diner. Washing dishes. Mopping floors. Listening to regulars. He said it was the most honest work he'd ever done. And when he returned to his company, he no longer led with numbers but with people. 10. The grandfather who finally said, "I was wrong." Arthur was the kind of man who never apologized. Not once. He hadn't spoken to his brother in over 40 years. But one snowy afternoon, sipping coffee by the window, he picked up the phone and with trembling fingers, dialed. When his brother answered, Arthur said only, "I'm sorry." That was all. And that was enough. They spent the next 6 Christmases together. Outro. A quiet place to land. So maybe that's what transformation really is. Not becoming someone new, but letting go of who we're not anymore. Unlearning the fear,
The ego.
the noise, and beginning again. Softer, truer, more open. If this felt like something worth remembering, I'd love for you to like, share your thoughts below, and subscribe. We tell stories like this every week because sometimes it helps to be reminded we're allowed to begin again.